Everybody wants to go to Zion. Everybody wants to go to Zion. Get on board this train. On board this train. Get on board this train. To Zion. Oh, Zion. We're going home. Whoa. Yeah, home. We're going home to Zion, to Zion, to Mount Zion. Cross over Jordan, over Jordan, Mount Zion, the highest region. Everybody wants to go to Zion. Everybody wants to go to Zion. Do all the good things in life. 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 If you want to go to Zion, if you want to go. If you want to go to Zion. If you want to go, if you want to go, if you want to go, we're going home. Get up, stand up, tell them, stand up for your right. I want you to know, get up, stand up, alright. Don't give up the fight. Stand up, tell them about it. Stand up for your right. I want you to know. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Don't give up the fight. I said, I'm preacher man, don't tell me God is under the earth. Cause I know that you don't know what life's really worth. It's not all glitters gold. And I have the story I've never been told. Now you see the light. Stand up for your right. Oh, oh, get up. Stand up for your right. I want you to get up, stand up. Well, I'm telling you, most people think God is coming from the sky. Take away everything and leave everybody feel high. But if you know what life is worth, stand up for yours on earth. Now you see the light. Stand up for your right. Oh, yeah. Stand up for your right. I want you to stand up. Stand up for your right. Oh, stand up for your right. a running. World is a running. Take a walk down the street. Everybody does a rock to the beat. People with them dancing feet. And the reggae sounds so sweet. Time I wonder how this world is a running. World is a running. Sometime I wonder how this world is a running. Yeah. This world could be a better place if everyone would just come together. Be as one. Don't try to fight one another. Sometime I wonder how this world is a running. Sometime I wonder how this world is a running.
Okay, it's such a beginning. I mean, where were we going to go? But that's what I'm here for, to tell you. I go on to get a little serious for just a half a second now to tell you that one of the most important underlying philosophies of the Children's Center is to preserve diversity and to achieve unity. And I think that today, this is not only a theory or a philosophy, it's fortunately and happily for us a reality. And I see it happening, and I'm really delighted about it, because we're not looking for a melting pot. We shouldn't be looking for that. We're looking for a multi-ethnic mosaic, if I must.
The major field has been developmental psychology or child psychology, and lately I'm moving into other fields, but this happens to be an area that concerns me very much, and that is, how do children develop very positive self-images, and what is it that we can do not only to help them develop, but also as adults, how do we maintain our own positive images of ourselves? And Phyllis Boysen happens to have one of the very best and probably rare collections of the history of images of blacks in literature, and also with dolls as well. Unlike anybody that I have known. So I've known her a great deal for a very long time, and one of the things that tends to bind us, hold us together, is the fact that there's something that she and I share, and that is my interest in how it is that we still continue to have very negative images of African Americans in particular, and how it has changed over time, whether or not the images have changed in any way, and also with regard to how images in literature have permeated other forms of the media like television and film and other kinds of things. So today I'm going to try to talk a little bit about what is a positive self-image, or what is positive self-esteem, and how is it that you get it, and who is it that we know has it, and so forth. So therefore, I'm going to talk a little bit about these images here, and then a little bit about more contemporary images. First of all, I have been very concerned about the image of all children, not only black children, but children in general. How is it that you come to know reality? How do you know social reality, meaning your interactions with other people? And one of the things that I've come to notice, that television in modern day times has or can have a great impact on the kinds of images and ways that children see themselves in general, and adults too. So let's take a look at some of the things that you see here. I will hold them very delicately, but I just want to point out, what is that? Do you know what it is? Who's sitting there? You don't know? Is a little boy sitting there? Oh, do you know the little boy's name? No? Does that little boy look like someone that you know? No. Okay. No. That's what I wanted. I was hoping they would say. How about yourself? No. Okay. And that's what I was hoping they would say, is that many years ago there was a tendency to distort the physical characteristics of people, and not only blacks, but in general, caricatures have been a part of the American culture, that we tend to take people, and you've seen them in your newspapers on Sunday mornings when they would take a leader and distort his features and that sort of thing. I don't remember the cartoonist who does that, but there are a number of people who do caricatures in our particular society, so they distort the features of other people. These children just said that they don't know anybody that looks like this. And I was saying, good, I'm very optimistic. Here you can see a big distortion of physical features, the big red rolling eyes. You see the lips, they're very red, pink looking. And I don't know how far many of you go back, but there was a time in which a lot of the literature, and particularly African Americans, were depicted like this in literature. And there are some other things down below that I think do it similarly. But this I'll just use an example to present some of the ideas that I want to. Second of all, about this, we always wonder what impact do these kinds of depictions or this way of showing children have on children's development? How does it make them see themselves as they're growing up? And as we can see, that these tend to be very, very negative. And the question is, well, how does one go about teaching his or her child not to be bothered by these kinds of things, to understand that these kinds of things are present in our media, but it doesn't have to have a negative impact. The impact for black children often is that the thought is it's going to make them hate themselves. The impact that it has on other children, particularly white children, is that it makes them think they're better or more superior than other children. So how do we create a situation in which we lessen feelings of inferiority among African American children and other children of color, and how do we also help children of the majority culture to understand that superiority isn't any real than inferiority? That's the major key. How do we help them all have a healthy, positive sense about who they are? One of the things that we have, unlike animals, is that we can make choices about things that we want and things that we don't want. Does everyone understand that?
Yeah.
The most of us have an element of choice. Animals, many of them live by instincts. They are driven to find food, or they're driven to mate, or whatever. But when it comes to adults and children and human beings, we all decide. I'm going to decide what I'm going to do, whether it's to pursue this particular goal, whether I'm going to eat this sandwich, whether I'm going to diet, whatever. We all make decisions as to what we're going to do. Well, what I'm saying has a lot of implications. There are a number of people who I think in history have been people who made choices. And these choices have been the kind which defy whatever the point of view has been of our given society over a period of time. For example, these are people who were alive and functioning when these kinds of images were just regular, like we have Cabbage Patch, well, this is basically what was during their time. Some of the people I'm thinking about, since it's Black history, are people like Harriet Tubman, people like Sojourner Truth, people like Frederick Douglass, and does anyone else know anybody else during that period of time? Who? W.B. Du Bois, who came just a little later.
Bread and this kind of coffee that's made with tea, coffee and tea combined with ginger. It's really good. And sugared milk. And then on the left, this woman, you see the little fire there. She's making what we call beignets, which are like little donuts, deep-fried donuts. They're good. And so we used to have for breakfast all the time when we were in the city.
And does she sell them, or?
Oh yeah, she sells them. Yeah, and she wraps them. You can't get newspaper there, but you can always get paper out of cement. You know that cement comes in, and that she would take them after she cooked them, and she put them in some paper that cement had just been in. So you'd put cement in your mouth. It's very bizarre. And this is a place where you photography studio. And this was a woman's home. She and her child lived here. And the reason I took this was because on the other side of this was the American Recreation Center. And it was just kind of, they had this nice restaurant with these nice tables and a swimming pool right on the other side of this fence, and this woman who lived impoverished right here. Transportation, you could These are called pirogues, which are boats that you can travel on the river. You can travel on camels. You can travel, if you look very closely, I'm going to hold this for a second. You can see on top, this is called Taxi Bruce. And they just stuff people in here. And on top, if you look very carefully, you can see a goat that they put on top. And sometimes the goat causes a mess. And it comes right down on the open windows that you're in, and you can't move. And it's really, you ride for hours on these. To get to my village, I'd leave Niamey on one of these things, and I'd go for 3 hours, and to the nearest village, that the Taxi Bruce would go to, and then I'd get off, and I would go by ox cart. And if you look, this man is in the other room looking at the film. He's already seen these slides enough. But he came to visit me, Dr. Warner, and there's a Dr. Johnson's behind him too. They both came to visit me, and in my village. And this is how we had to get to my village. I just ran off real quick and took this picture.
Did you take all the pictures?
I took most of them. While Dr. Warner was there, he took some of the pictures.
And that's millet growing there?
That's millet growing there, yes. It comes up to about the same height as corn, but it grows up in the middle like this, if you've seen millet growing. I have some pictures of it harvested. And some of you may have, religion, and this is the main mosque that's being built in Niger right now. The outside of it's pretty much built. The inside still has a lot of work to be done, but Gaddafi is paying for this. But the Nigerians can't stand Gaddafi. I mean, he threatened to invade Niger, and so the Lieutenant Colonel Kunchi, who's the president of Niger, he kicked all the Libyans out of Niger, and so of course Gaddafi cut off all the money, and so to build this thing, and so the mosque has not been finished, but it is a beautiful piece of architecture when up close. And this is a street mosque, and Muslims have to pray 5 times a day. And I didn't know, when I first got to this country, I didn't know what this was. It just looked like a pile of rocks to me, and I was walking down the street, and I just walked right through it, and it was just quickest way between 2 points, and all of a sudden this guy started yelling at me in Zarma, and then I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand. So he switched to French, and then I got the gist of what he was talking about, and I had to apologize to him, because this is where they pray. When they pray 5 times a day, they have their own street mosque, and so I apologized. And I told him I had just come to the country. He was very understanding. But it was a real education for me too. Yes, quick education. But they were they were nice about it. And this is the mosque in my village. And no matter which village you go to, the mosque is always the nicest. Even in the capital city, the mosque is the nicest building in the community. And I took this as part of the religion too, because in a Muslim religion, a woman is never allowed to walk with a man. In fact, you can be arrested for walking with a man. I think women probably pick a little bit when they're eating. In fact, I'm sure they do. But that's just the way it is. She doesn't eat her full meal, though, until after the men have had their full.
What's the reason for that?
I guess it's just tradition that's been handed down from generation to generation, that the men have had to go out and fight the wars, and that they need to have the energy for the food to help them to go out and to
be
strong. Yeah, they have to be the strongest. They do slaughter their goats and skin them.
Wait a minute, the children are doing that?
Yes. Oh, sure. And they don't think anything about that. That's just This is. I don't like. It's not a good comparison, but it's the Christmas. What Christmas would be to them, or to us.
Big feast.
Yeah, it is. It's a big fete, and then they cook them up on these steaks like this, and then they take the meat out, and then they hand it out to different people who are less fortunate. It's a really nice time of the year. And this is in my village, right near my village. And you can see this is the height of the dry season. It gets it gets to about.
My family comes from the northern part of Africa, but I've studied for the last several years with African musicians from Ghana. I moved from Ghana and Zimbabwe, and my teachers are Abraham Kobna Zenya from Ghana. He's a master musician, a drummer and singer and dancer, and Freeman Dankor, Kwadzo Dankor, who also is from Ghana, from the Ewe tribe, and Ed Zenya is an Akan. These are just different areas, different tribal groupings in Ghana. My teacher from Zimbabwe, which is what this instrument is from, is Dumasani Mariere, and he's a Shona, which is the largest tribal group in Zimbabwe. And I was fortunate enough to study with him for one whole summer right before he went back to Zimbabwe. He's now a senior minister, I guess you would call him, in the government of Zimbabwe, in the recreation and education area, so that he's trying to bring traditional music back to the kids who had had it sort of literally whitewashed out of their minds by missionaries. And he is a very gifted singer and musician on the mbira and also on the marimba, which is sort of an exploded mbira. It's a wooden xylophone. It's a whole ensemble, though, based on the repertoire of the mbira. So I've studied with them for several years, and I do only material that they felt I was able to do adequately, that it was still keeping the respect and also the quality, the authenticity of the cultures. And it's something that's very important to me because African culture tends to be very participatory, and the music tends to be participatory. So, and as many of you who are Afro-Americans know in your churches, there's a tremendous amount of interchange. It's not the same as going into a white church where you have the minister and you have the choir and you have the people just sitting there silently through the whole thing for the most part. There's a lot more of that feeling of community. And what my teachers have shared with me and what I've seen for myself is that in African music there are often short passages that are created, short phrases that people can sing very quickly, and it gives them a chance to join in very quickly in the music so that nobody's just sitting there listening to the expert perform in front of the room. Everybody's really taking part as soon as they can. And there's a lot of improvisation along lines that people learn as they grow up in the different societies. Now to start with, I do have laryngitis, so you'll have to forgive me. I have no idea which notes I'm going to hit and which notes I'm not going to hit. But to start with, I'll just say a couple of words about this. I always like to start with this because it's the most unusual instrument of what I have. And it's one of my favorites because it'll get everybody singing together. This is an mbira. This particular one is an Nyunga mbira. It's from Zimbabwe. And in different parts of Africa, it's known by different names. Likembe, Sansa, Kalimba. Many people here have seen just the inside of this with a different number of keys, and it's called a kalimba. This outside part is just a resonator. And in Zimbabwe, the traditional musicians would have this be a very large calabash gourd that's been dried, and it just makes the sound louder. This one happens to have 15 keys, high and low keys, but they go up to as many as 52 and as few as maybe 3 or 5. I've got one that's a big box. It's from Jamaica that you can sit on and hit with your heels of your feet. Have you seen those? And it's kind of like a bass drum. My belly gets in the way these days. And I'll start with a very, very traditional song that I like to do because it's easy for people to join in many ways. It's called Chemtangure. I'm just going to sing through it. It starts out very, very simply and then builds in complexity, and then I'll add the song and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. It's in the Shona language. Gaza chiri vikiri ngoro vakomana. Aya baba we, aya baba we, aya baba we, aya baba we. Oh yeah 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 yeah, oh yeah yeah. Temtengure, 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 urambo sekuru, urambo sekuru. Temtengure birin goro, temtengure, temtengure birin goro, temtengure. Kazu chiri bikirin goro me komana, kazu chiri bikirin goro me komana. Ah ah ah, eh eh eh, aya baba we, aya baba we. This is a song in the Shona language about a South African man who is working as an ox driver. And what he does is, while the white man rides on the wagon to market, he, the black man, walks alongside and whacks the ox with a stick and keeps it going, because oxen are stubborn and they don't want to go to the market. And he says that the life of a wagon driver is not so terrible. It gives him food, it gives him shelter, he's able to take care of his family. On the other hand, he's a lot more intelligent and creative than what probably the white man who's riding up on the seat might think. And he happens to be a musician. And he says that the only rhythm he gets these days is the feet of the oxen as they plod on the way to the market. And the only music he gets is the sound of the wheel crunching on the gravel. And the phrase that describes that sound of the wheel going around and around and around crunching on the gravel is chemtengure. And at various points he just comments on the state of his life. He says, Sekuru Urumbo, that's my uncle, poverty. Urumbo is poverty. Poverty, oh my uncle. And as he walks along, people call out different things to him. Some of the women will tease him. They'll just say, whoa, yay, yay, yay. And kind of like, ha, 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 look at him going along the way. And what they actually are saying, in a verse that I haven't sung because it's complicated to teach people, is that the wife of a wagon driver also does not have such a terrible life. It would be a good thing to be his wife, because at least you always have axle grease to cook with. Now this is an old song, and peanut butter is a staple of South African cooking. Well, Zimbabwean, I don't know how far into South Africa that would be, that it would hold true. But peanut butter, peanuts, and things that are made out of it are very common. And depending on how you use the peanut butter, you can use the peanut oil for grease. And in the old days, the wagon wheels would have been greased with lard, probably, some kind of animal fat, as opposed to petroleum products. And so, indeed, if you ran out of cooking grease, you could actually take, if you had to, you could take the grease off of the wheel and use it in cooking. Not that he would, but this is just a taunt. It's just something that the women are calling out to him. And in a way, they're actually jealous of the fact that he's got a stable job and his wife has a stable family. Now, this has a lot of different parts to it. And if you were all Shona people, you would have been taught how to add your own parts to it by just listening to what's coming on the ambira, or what's kind of floating in the air over it. But I'll teach you a few parts so that we can just get this rolling. A couple of the kids in here have already learned some of the parts, so I expect you to sing out. Okay, one part is ah, 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 eh, 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 ah, 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 eh, eh, eh. Okay, that's the easiest part. And I've never been able to really do this with a room that had grown men in it, as opposed to children. So let's have that be that's actually the bass part. So let's do it correctly. That'll be the bass part. All of you low, low, low voices sing ah, eh, eh. And then the women's part, one of the women's parts can be, this is a middle range. Gotta wait wait for it to come around. Walk, yeah, yeah, 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 walk, yeah, yeah. Help me. Walk, yeah, yeah, walk, yeah, yeah, walk, yeah, yeah, walk, yeah, yeah. Okay, let's put those two together. Let's do keep going. Okay, and on top. Oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, that sounds great. Okay. Don't get carried away. We've got more parts to add.
You can't turn us off, right?
Okay, next part. Let's see, some of you can go. This is a real high part. The wagon wheel sound. Jam tangure, 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 jam tangure. Okay, great. We're gonna start. Okay, now, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh jam tangure, jam That sounded great. Well, this is for the road by the clapping of the hands. Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, young sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Old sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, don't you know the road by the marching on home? A little differently about his actions before he did them. Mi da wa wa se, mi da wa wa se, mi da wa wa se. Abyan sameti samyaran mi da wa wa se. Mi da wa wa se, mi da wa wa se, mi da wa wa se. Abranti wati samyara mi da wa wa se. Tom fue nyame minya denyi mi da wa wa se. Abranti wati se mi da wa wa se. Mi da wa wa se, mi da wa wa se, mi da wa wa se. Abranti wati se miara mi da wa wa se. Let me just switch to by talking drum. And This is something that goes to an ensemble called Palago. I've been in a West African drumming ensemble, drumming, dancing, singing, and many of the drum ensembles have a lot of songs that go with them. And I'm just going to do two just so you can hear the drum a little bit. Mina mi do vera, meji amiga fui, namia podi bofia, alleluia eia enabami, alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Let's try one more that'll really get the adults involved, and then any of you who want to can watch or participate, but then I'll get the kids doing some things here on the floor. I'll give you a chance to stretch a little bit. This is a song from Zimbabwe that's a Shona wedding song. It's really kind of a teasing song. Many of the weddings become just nothing but singing for 3 days and nights. They go to the bride's village and they sing all the way there, and then they go to groom's village and they sing on the way there, and then they sing at the party and they sing before the ceremony and they sing after the ceremony. And this is very simple the way we're going to do it, but there are as many parts as there are human beings, because you could create little tiny bits and pieces and throw them in anywhere you wanted to. The song says Waibamba, and that's it. Those are all the words you need to know. Waibamba. And Waibamba means you've got him, you've got her. You've caught the person now that you're married. And it goes like this. Waibamba, Waibamba, a little high. Waibamba, Waibamba, why, dee, 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 dee. Waibamba, Waibamba, why, dee, 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 dee. That's the first part. Second part. Why bamba, why wee wee dee dee dee. Why bamba, why wee dee dee dee. Third part. Why bamba, why wee 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 wee. Why bamba, why wee 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 wee. Now what will happen ideally is that those will all go on at the same time. And the first part is really the whole melody. So you can stick on this one part as long as you want, just never do anything and listen to everything else that's happening around you, and that's fine too. So the first part goes, why bamba, why wee 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 wee. Why bamba, why wee 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 wee. Why bamba, why wee 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 wee. Why bamba, why. Okay, wee wee, it's the same note there. Now, for brave souls who want to go on to the second part after they've sung the first part a couple of times, second part goes, why bamba, why, wee 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 wee. Why bamba, why, wee 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 wee. Try that. Anybody who wants to? Why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. Why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. Okay, let's put those two together, as if you're going to just sing those two parts over and over again. You do the first part twice, second part twice. Okay, why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. 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 Great, okay. Now let's have a few low voices go. Why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. Why, bumba, why, wee, wee, wee. Or even why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. Why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. Why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. Okay. Now, let's see how it's going to work. Okay, first part. Anybody who wants to just do nothing but the first part or the first and the second part, now is your chance to start. Here we go. Why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. Why, bumba, why, wee. Keep going, do that again. Why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. Why, bumba, why, wee, wee. Keep going with the high part. Why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. Why, bumba, why, wee, 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 wee. Yeah, that's some clapping too. Why, bumba, why, wee, wee, wee. Why, bumba, why, wee, wee, wee. Why, hey-ho, way, Okay. Kofi salanga, keke chilanga, kum adende, kum adende, kum adende. Hey! Okay, stand up and JJ Kofinsa. Oh, wait a minute. You look like a bunch of Americans. You can't just go JJ Kofinsa, Kofinsa. You know, part of it is that you're doing one thing with your hands, and you're doing another thing with your body, and you're singing in a third thing. Rhythms, all moving together, and this is how a lot of kids grow up to very quickly. By the time they're 5, 6, and 7 years old, they're able to play in drumming ensembles with their friends. They can do polyrhythms. It's just because it's always there from the time they're infants. Actually, this baby is going to be born doing polyrhythms. So, JJ Kule, JJ Kule, JJ Kofinsa, JJ Kofinsa, Kofi Salanga, Keke Chilanga, Kum Adende, Kum Adende, Kum Adende. Hey, faster! JJ Kule, JJ Kofinsa, Kofi Salanga, Keke Chilanga, Kum Langa, Keke Chilanga, Kum Adende, Kum Adende, hey! Okay, Senegal. I'm not positive if this was a tourist drum or an authentic drum, but it is the way that many of the drums look. It's the same shape, the size is a little bit different, but the carving is very common to find a face or just an I or an X. And in a drumming ensemble, you turn all the symbols which represent the spirit of the tree and the spirit of the music and all the generations of teachers. You turn that to the leader of the ensemble, the master drummer. And this again is a kid's game from Ghana, and it's hands like this. Ready for this? It starts out hands like this, and everybody claps right after. So it goes hands like this, hands like that, same. Then when I say 1, 2, 3, you clap and say 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's take it from the top that much. Hands like this, hands like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we say, make a motion, okay. Make a motion, okay. You do anything you want. Make a motion, okay. Change your motion, okay. Change your motion, okay. And every time I say change, you have to think something new. But then, and do only 4 of them, so that you're going the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make that, okay. And then, at some point, I'm going to try and get you back, so you have to concentrate. I'm going to try and get you back onto hands like this, and you have to clap right away. At different points, I'll tell you what part of your body to make your motion with, so that things don't get too out of hand. Okay, hands like this, hands like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make a motion, okay. Make a motion, okay. Change your motion, okay. Change your motion, okay. Change your motion, okay. Change your motion. And hands like this, hands like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make a motion with your hands. Make a motion, okay. Make a motion, okay. Make a motion, okay. Make a motion, okay. And hands like this, hands like wa de den de, sene wa. Right down the scale. And that just is kind of a phrase of excitement. Sene wa de den de, sene beta beta. Sene wa de den de, sene wa. Come on, me, but I was. Sene wa de den de, sene wa. Oh, simba den, sene wa de den de, sene wa. Oh, simba di, sene wa de den de, sene wa. Oh, sene de bonnie, want that sene wa, you blame de, sene wa. Can you do that? Sene wa de den de, sene wa. Okay, it just goes. Sene wa de den de, sene wa. Sene wa de den de, sene wa. And then nothing. Okay. All right. I need some help on this one, though. It doesn't sound good without instruments. So, if somebody can go, let's see what we're going to do. Anybody back there can do this with it? Sene wa de den de, sene. Okay, wait, I know what you do. Here. Do this one. Chunk, chunk, okay? You think that's easy. The thing is, we're going to be doing, that's off the beat. Chunk, chunk, chunk. Yeah, no, you were right, I'm saying to them. Oh, let it be a little looser in your hand so you get the ring. Okay, and let's see, how about a couple more of these? Who would like to? Want that? Okay. Sure. Why not? Be surprised. Okay, and if somebody, anybody back there want to use? This kid here wants to use. Okay, let's go to. Sene wa de den de, sene wa. Okay, we can go. Sene wa that way. Sene wa. Okay, low high. It's on the same clap. So everybody's going. Sene wa de den de, sene wa. Chunk, chunk. Sene wa de den de, sene wa da 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 da. Sene wa de den de, sene wa. Okay, let's just see if we can put it together. Now, so it goes. Peta peta, sene wa de den de, sene peta peta, sene wa de den de, sene wa de peta, sene wa de den de, sene wa de peta, sene wa de den de, sene wa me bravo, sene wa de den de, sene wa usemba iden, sene wa de den de, sene wa osemba didio, sene wa de den de, sene wa top one, sene wa de den de, sene wa sene de bana, sene wa de den de, sene wa. Now the only thing you have to know is the next part goes. I go abba, 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 like wow, all right. And you have to go sene wa de den de, sene wa de den de, sene wa de den de, sene wa. So you kind of overlap. Sene wa de den de, sene wa de den de, sene wa de den de, sene wa. That's it. Sene wa de den de, sene wa de den de, sene wa de den de, sene peta peta, sene wa de den de, sene peta peta, sene wa de den de, sene wa mi bravo, sene wa de den de, sene wa simba ere, sene wa de den de, sene kupuna top one, sene wa de den de, that's all I'll do, because I suspect that Camille Yarborough has come. Do you know back? Is there anybody else back there?
Yes.
Did she come? Okay, so you can take a little break and gab and whatever you want. And this is the woman who's written the book Cornrows. Yeah.
1 minute.
Take it.
Okay, I'm Tammy Chesed. This is Juanita Bush, special education teacher at Rogers Park Junior High School. Let me see. Juanita, did you like teaching special education at Rogers Park?
I enjoyed teaching special ed at Rogers Park. There was a time when I thought, I got to get out of this profession. And I think that that might be something that every teacher goes through at some point if they've chosen teaching as a profession. But I got over that hurdle and I really enjoy it.
How long have you been teaching at Rogers Park?
This is my 6th year teaching, and all 6 years have been at Rogers Park.
What did you do as the leader of the Afro-American Club?
Well, we started the Afro-American Club to have some time where minority students in our building could get together and relate to each other. And within the Afro-American Club, we promoted Black History Month. We promoted Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. And we did different programs within the school and took different trips as a group.
Did you develop the Afro-American Club there, or?
Well, a couple of kids came up to me and asked me, could we start some type of group for Black students and other minority students within Rogers Park? And that's how it was started. They asked me to be the advisor for the group, and I said, okay. This year, we do not have the Afro-American Club. Because of my schedule, I have no free time to work with the Afro-American Club. So what has happened is that we don't have the club this year. And that's unfortunate.
Did you go to Danbury High School?
Yeah, I went to Danbury High School.
Did you find a lot of racial criticism towards blacks at the time anyway?
Well, if there was any there, it was probably quite subtle, kind of buried, and didn't really come out unless it was some specific incident that was going on. I had a good 4 years at Danbury High School personally, and rarely ran into any type of racial conflict, but I was a very outgoing person. Didn't let things like that bother me because I felt that it was a problem that the other person had and not myself.
Okay. What college did you go to?
I went to University of Hartford in West Hartford, Connecticut, where I majored in special ed.
How are schools different from when you went as they are now?
Let me see. I think that our schedules were packed with courses. I find that students have a lot of study halls now. I'm going to compare the high school then and now. And when I was at the high school, we had a dress code. You could not wear jeans. The females had to wear dresses, skirts, or pantsuits. So if you wore pants, it had to match with the top that you had on. And the last year that I was at Danbury High School, I became president of the student council there. And we fought to abolish the dress code that was there, and that was accomplished. And now that I look back on it, whether good or bad, we did establish a smoking area within the school. So those are some of the things that changed as I was going through high school.
How was Danbury different for you while you were growing up as opposed to now?
When I was growing up, I remember living on River Street. I'm sure nobody here even remembers River Street, but I believe now it's Kennedy Avenue or Kennedy Street, right near General Dadikoff, right. And there used to be houses along the hill on the side, and that's where my family lived. I can remember being 5 years old when we moved from that area. And my parents had 10 children. And so our choice at the time was to either move into one of the housing projects in Danbury at the time, it was High Ridge. Mill Ridge wasn't there at the time where the houses were, so it was High Ridge or Laurel Gardens. And neither one of them were my mother's choices. So as a result, my father decided to get his third job, and my mother decided to go to work, and they bought a house, and they still live in that house today on East Pearl Street. And so I think that there's been a big change there. The only other thing that stands out in my mind growing up, I remember having a lot of friends as a young child, and never remembering going to houses to my different friends' houses and things like that. And the only real problem that came up was when we started going to school. And I think that as little kids, you don't see too many differences among yourselves. But when you get in school, people, particularly teachers and other adults, start pointing out differences that they think are important. As kids, you don't think are important, but certainly adults thought that they were important. And I ended up losing a lot of friends, a lot of close friends that I had made when I was younger, once I got into school.
As a probation officer, what kind of problems did you say you could deal with?
As a probation officer, I was working one-to-one with young kids that were on probation for different criminal acts that they had committed. And I think one of the real problems that I ran into was getting the kids to open up to me. Although I had the title of a probation officer, I didn't really see myself as that type of authority figure. I just wanted to talk with the person that was on probation, see if there was any way that I would be able to assist them or help them. And that was one of the biggest things to get over. And once we did, we formed a really lasting relationship. And that's what I wanted to happen, more of a friendship, somebody they could talk to and be with at least a couple of times a week.
Did you work for the Community Action?
I've worked for Community Action for the past 4 summers as a regular counselor, as a senior counselor, and last year as an assistant director.
You recently took a trip across the United States, and it was you and a girlfriend, I gather. Just jumped in your car and went to California.
That's right.
A long time ago, a gentleman wrote a book called Black Like Me, in which he described his experience traveling through different parts of the United States. And some of the things he wrote about were pretty frightening, the way blacks were treated as they traveled across country. How long ago did you do this?
This was about 5 years ago. And we decided that we weren't going to stay in hotels or motels or inns. We packed our tent and our sleeping bag and our cooler and packed our clothes in duffel bags, and we headed out. And it probably really didn't even cross our minds that we would run into any type of racism or anything. And I think that once we hit like the Midwest, that's when it really hit us. The friend that went with me was another teacher, and she happened to be white, and we really hadn't even thought about anything. We originally stopped in Ohio at my relative's house. We spent the night there, a couple of nights, and then we headed on, and we camped at different sites. Again, we didn't run into anything overt, anything people really brought out, anything, but we might stop in restaurants and we'd get the double look. Maybe people hesitating to wait on our table. And we ran into a lot of that as we headed back to Connecticut, coming through the southern part of the country. And the more we ran into stuff like that, we thought, well, maybe we don't have to deal with this. And we decided that no, we wouldn't deal with it. And we didn't actually go as far south as we wanted to go. We went halfway across the south and then headed back up north because we did realize that we were 2 females, and again, some of the problems that individual people have, we weren't going to be able to deal with it on an individual basis, just the 2 of us going that route. So
what
we
were
did.
your impressions of your trip across the United States?
I saw the most beautiful country that I've ever seen. I had taken trips out of the United States before, knowing that I would see beautiful blue water and beautiful beaches. Well, we ran into mountains and parks and animals, and there's just so much within the United States to see that people miss it by taking those trips outside of the country, thinking that, you know, that's the hot spot to be, that's where all the beautiful land is. Well, we ran into beautiful landscapes. It was just amazing. We kept a diary every day. Each one of us took turns keeping the diary, and also we set up our pictures to go with our diary. And Sue, the other friend, she did slides and I did snapshots. And it was amazing. We got a chance to actually sit down and talk to people. We would stop at, they weren't actual Indian reservations, but it would be an area alongside of the road where American Indians would be selling their goods. And we didn't necessarily stop to buy things, but basically we went on our trip more to learn more about people and their way of life and things that they were going through. And we were educated in that way, just sitting down and talking to people in different sections of the country.
How long did the trip take?
We got out of school and at the end of June sometime, and we left July 5th. We came back a couple of days before school started, the end of August. And we just took our time. We knew we had the whole summer, the summer vacation. So it must have been at least 6 to 8 weeks. And I had never been camping for that amount of time, but it was great. Our first night we had to pitch our tent, and it was a tent that we had borrowed from someone, so we had no idea how to put it up, but we figured a tent, anybody can put up a tent. Well, we ended up having a 7-year-old kid be the expert with helping us put it up, and our first stop was in Pennsylvania.
Were you the only one in your family that went to college?
No, everyone in my family has gone to school beyond high school.
Brag about your family a little bit. Tell everybody what they're doing.
Okay. I have 6 sisters and 3 brothers. Yeah, it's a big family. And like I said, everyone in my family has gone to college. My oldest sister is married with 3 young boys. 2 of them are twins.
You can use their names.
Okay. Ruthie is the oldest. She's the oldest in the family, married with 2 twin boys and a younger boy, Benjamin. And right now she is one of the directors at Travelers Insurance Company. Her husband is a lawyer. And then I have a sister, Barbara, who lives in Washington, D.C. And she is married to Rodney. He's an urban planner, and Barbara is a lawyer. And then I have a brother, Reuben. He is a supervisor at the post office in Massachusetts. And he is married and has 2 sons. And then I have a brother, Charles. He lives in Washington, D.C. also. And he works for the Environmental Protection Agency. And then I have a sister, Jeanette, and she lives in Coventry, Connecticut. Her husband is a computer operator, an engineer, and she's a homemaker and works part-time. She has 2 daughters. And then I have a sister, Evelyn, and she is an assistant warden at the Hartford Correctional Institution in Hartford. And her husband is a security officer in Cheshire, and they have a small daughter. And then there's me, and then I have a brother underneath me. His name is Kenny, and he lives in New Haven. and he is a counselor at a residential center, and his wife, and they have a small son, and they're expecting another child. And then I have a sister, Wanda, and she lives in New Britain. I can't remember all these people. And she's married. Her husband's name is Meredith. And then I have a younger sister who just graduated from UConn out of the nursing program, and she just took her test last week. She's waiting for the results, and she's living at home now. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Your mother and father.
And my mother and father. My father's a minister. He's assistant minister at New Hope Baptist Church here in Danbury. And because of my father's religious involvement, my mother went back to school, and she is now a minister, although she got her degree to do more of teaching, counseling, religious teaching and religious counseling here in Danbury.
Juanita, you just blew about 12,000 stereotypes totally out the window.
Sure.
What do you attribute the tremendous success of your family to the fact that everybody is really out there doing quite well? Quite well.
I would have to attribute it to my mother and father. The reason being that very strong people coming up from the South, knowing what they had gone through and determined not to see their family go through some of the same things. One of those things, one example, for instance, is not being able to finish school because their parents needed them to work to bring food into the house or money into the house for financial support. And certainly we did that. Certainly when we were 16, we got part-time jobs or jobs here and there, but certainly not for the full support of the family. And that was one of the main things, their determination and their religious upbringing. And I guess that same determination was put into all of their children. We knew that it was expected of us that, you know, if you wanted it, it was out there for you to get. Certainly there were hurdles that you were going to have to jump, and they would be there to support you. I think one of the sometimes we get together. Most of the time our family gets together during Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we sit down and we talk about the things that happened in the past and things that were important to us that other people in the family may not have known about at the time. And I think one of the interesting things that my brother always brings up is that when he was in high school, he got a scholarship to go to a private school, and that school was Choate in Wallingford. And he had a big decision to make because it would mean leaving his family and leaving his friends that he had made in school and going to a all-white private school. And I think that at the time he felt a lot of pressure, probably from my parents to, you know, that might be the only way that you'll get your education and you'll have to take it now. And he did go. And that took him out of our family life for about 3 to 4 years. And a lot of the things that he was going through on a daily basis. We were not. And from there, he ended up getting a scholarship to Harvard, and it was well worth it and everything. But that period in his life that took him away from his family and the things that he had to face on his own, and a lot of it was some of the racist attitudes of the other students that went there. And I think that he'll remember that for the rest of his life. And we've been, since that time, we meet as a family to keep growing, because that was a period that he was taken from us too. So a lot of things that were going on with us, he didn't know about. And some of the things that we were going through. So we do get together and we talk about some of the things that happened to us that maybe we didn't share at the time, and how they affected our lives and where we are now, and going back to those things. But certainly our parents were very, very strict. With 7 girls, I think that there was that definite double standard in our house where if you're a guy, it's okay if you go out there and stay until 2 o'clock, but if you're the girl, you're home at 12 o'clock, no later than 12 o'clock at night, okay? And we could never, it was so hard to break that down. And we go back and we look at it and we try to understand that, our parents probably had to be that way. Certainly as parents, you have fears about your children and things that you want them to accomplish. And with 7 girls, and I'm sure that that's where they thought they were doing the best thing, and I'm sure they did. But that was one of the big things in the family that we were always fighting about, was that big double standard. And my brother was younger than me. He's a year younger than me, and I thought, well, I'm the oldest, so if he can stay out until 2, certainly I can stay out until 3. But no, it was not that way. You know, I was still a girl, and I had to be in the house because at 12 o'clock respectable girls are in the house. So I would always mention the fact that, well, you know, Kenny is certainly out there with somebody else's daughter. That didn't help.
Kelly, you want to finish up that last question?
What do you see in the future for the Black community in Danbury?
I really don't know. I know what I would like to see, and some of the things that I would like to see is the Black community opening up to other groups within the community and sharing some of the things that go on within the Black community. And I think one of the things that have us heading in that direction is the ethnic cultural fair that goes on every year here in Danbury. And I've had a chance to attend it for the past 2 years. And if you ever get a chance to go to the one this year, please go. All the ethnic groups in Danbury set up their different booths, and you're introduced to the different cultures, to the different, everything that goes on, the dress, the songs, the food. And I think that that's one of the things that has opened up Danbury as a whole community, not just as a, you know, the Black community certainly is headed in different directions, but I would like to see Danbury open up as a whole community, including all peoples of Danbury.
And we hope this project will in some way too. So part of it. I want to thank you very much, and Tammy, I want to thank you for arranging for her to come over here. Would you like to sign off for us?
Sure, what do I say? This was Juanita Bush. We thank you very much for coming over. Thank you for spending your time over here. And that's all, folks.
Well, yeah, we're not with that, so.
Wilbur Ham of the Danbury Police Department. How long have you lived in Danbury?
I lived in Danbury approximately 12 years.
Well, where'd you live before that?
Prior to living in Danbury, I lived in Stamford, Connecticut.
What made you decide to come to Danbury?
Stamford, Connecticut is a growing town, and it was getting expensive to live there. I had a growing family, and I wanted to move out more or less into an area where it wouldn't be so congested. Stamford has grown from a town comparable to Danbury into a large city. It's the bedroom community of New York City. So I thought I could move here and educate my children and kind of bring them up and keep them in touch with some of the more natural things in life.
Were you a police officer when you were in Stamford?
No, I was in another field of work.
How did you go about becoming a police officer? Did you just make up your mind?
Well, being a police officer is something I wanted to do for quite some time. When I was a young fella, I always used to look up at the police officers and wonder what it was like to be a police officer and want to be a police officer, because a police officer, to me, was a person that had a lot of power and was a person who had a great chance to help other people. And quite frequently, I saw people, or I saw police officers using power, but not necessarily helping people. And so I just wanted to find out what it was about and try and see if I could kind of fit into what this police world was all about.
How long have you been a police officer now?
I've been a police officer in Danbury for about 5.5 years.
Were there any type of, did you have to go to college or anything?
At the time I joined the Danbury Police Department, it wasn't necessary to go to college. Police work is now becoming a science, and a lot of places they require you to have a college degree, at least an associate's degree. In other places they like you to have a BS degree in political science or sociology. somewhere in the social science area, so you get used to working with people and helping them.
What are like some of the trainings for, like, you know, how you go to trainings and stuff like that?
Okay, basically, your training starts off with a time period spent up at the police academy in Meriden, Connecticut. And you spend an initial 14 weeks there learning the rudiments of police work. And that covers the gamut anywhere from traffic control to crowd control to domestic disputes, all the different types of various things that we have to do in the community. You get the basics there. And after you come from the police academy, you have to pass the police academy, you have to graduate from it to become a regular police officer. And then you come into whatever town that you're assigned to, and you start your work there. You are also obligated by state law to continue your educational process. And we're required to do X amount of work each year. Otherwise, we lose our certification for being a police officer.
What's the hardest thing that you ever come across? Like, what was your worst experience?
Toughest situation.
The situation ranges, and I think it depends basically on the type of person you are as to what is tough, what is hard to do. I mean, you are taught to do certain things to protect the community. And to some people, those things might be hard. And to other people, they're not so hard. If you're conditioned to do them, then you can do them and it's not so hard. Maybe afterwards it affects you, and you'll need some help in dealing with whatever it is that you have to do. Some of the most painful things that I personally had to deal with was not so much bank robbers or armed holdups or that sort of thing, but it's just coming into people's lives and looking at the misery and looking at the neglect, and where it deals with children. You see child abuse, child assault, and that's very painful because you have a person who is victimized who has no control over what is going on, and they don't even understand what happened to them. All they know is that somebody they looked up to, somebody they cared for, abused them. And that for me was always very hard to take. It never was too hard for me to approach someone who was being violent and harming someone, to have to do whatever I have to do to subdue them. That's not difficult, that's clear cut. You're trying to save someone, you're trying to help someone.
It's like a victim that's harder for you to deal with.
Absolutely, it's harder for me to accept.
Is it difficult for you in this community, because it's a small community, you know a lot of people, especially in the black community. Are you called upon in some cases to handle things that white officers might not be called upon? Does it help or hurt to be a black officer?
My personal experience, it's always helped to be a black police officer, simply because, yes, black people, the black community has, just like the white community, different economic classes. But the vast majority of black people are poor, economically depressed people. And coming from a background like that, I learned to understand the needs and aspirations of economically depressed people. And when they lose control, I can understand and I can relate to them a little more. And I usually can talk them into calming down, and we don't end up with the volatile situation that could have existed if someone else with a different background or with a lack of understanding approached that situation. It's not always necessary to use force. I mean, if we have to use it, we use it. But it's not always necessary. Sometimes you can really diffuse a situation, and you can get some people some help, and you can refer them to the proper agencies where their life might change a bit.
More or less, you don't use force unless you have to.
Oh, if it's necessary to use the force, we use it.
What are your likes about the job? Like, what do you like the most about your job?
What I like the most about being a police officer is the contact that we make with people. In this job, you meet a gamut of people, from the highs to the lows financially, because they're all high socially. They're all good people. They're all the same. I like meeting the people, I like helping the people, I like dealing with people.
Are there really any things like a disadvantage that you have trouble with your job?
Well, in what way? What type of disadvantage would you be referring to?
Maybe like situations you could get into, maybe some of the regulations, like you've got to keep the schooling going, or anything like that.
Possibly family life. I think that's the issue.
Family life.
Okay. Family life. Being a police officer. It is difficult to maintain your family life. Most police officers don't maintain so-called standard family life. I mean, the hours we work, the type of work that you do, the job in itself, it changes you if you're constantly bombarded with brutalized things, if you're constantly being taught to brutalize people if necessary. All that has a psychological effect on you. And you have to be able to deal with that and not bring that same thought, that same concept home to your family, out in the world when you're not a police officer. You have to be able to almost change your personality. And that's hard because the strongest part continues to grow and you change gradually unless you constantly fight to resist that. You can't hardly come into your house and handle your family the way you handle some domestic disputes. You know? But this happens, you know. We're no different than anybody else. We're people, we're human beings just like anyone else. You see so much human misery sometimes, and it affects you. And traditionally, police officers are very macho, or we're strong type, John Wayne type heroes, and we don't have any pain, so we have to hold our pain inside, which is very painful. You don't have anyone to share it with, and you have to pretend that these things don't bother you, but they do. And we see injustice sometimes, and sometimes we can't do anything about it, and that hurts you too. So that's just one difficult aspect of our job. Another aspect is dealing with young people your age. If you guys are doing something wrong, even if you're just loitering, which is not a horrible thing, and it's in a situation where you shouldn't be. I mean, a police officer will come up and ask you to move. Some people might move, some people might not move. Some people might have a whole idea and concept of what or who a police officer is or what he's about and resist him just because they're angry at someone else. That uniform makes us stand out and we become a target for your problems, for your abuse. And without even knowing me, man, I hate that guy. Here he comes. And you know, I'm just a guy just like you. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to take you to move along so there won't be any problems. And we have that problem. People have a preconceived idea of who the police officer is.
There was a teacher at Broadview that I once worked with who said that the black students often gave, she was a black woman and she had recently come up from the South, and she said the black students often gave her a tougher time because they expected her always to be on her side. And her answer was, I am on your side. But that doesn't mean I let you get away with things. Is that similar to what you might find for yourself in relation to the minority youngsters in town? Are they more for you, or do they use that?
Do they try to use that here?
Lay a guilt trip on you or something?
People quite frequently try and lay a guilt trip on a police officer. I haven't run into that as much of a problem. I mean, it's something you learn as you go along. You know when people are trying to con you. And everybody, no matter who it is that you have to deal with, they're innocent and they're being victimized. That's their cry. Perhaps some people are, but everyone makes their cry. So you get kind of used to it, and you deal with basically a preponderance of evidence, you know, and that's what you have to make your decision on. I mean, you can take other social ills into consideration, but that doesn't change the fact of the case. As far as being a black police officer and dealing with the black community, I've never had any serious problem with the black community because I know the black community, I know who to go to, who to talk to, and they know what I expect of them, and I know what they expect of me. And I'm honest and I'm fair with them, and I treat them like human beings. Consequently, we never have any problems. Perhaps in this area we might have a problem in human relations, and that's an area that should be worked on, as far as I'm concerned, because it can lessen a lot of tension areas if we can improve on how we relate to people and how we treat people. I mean, you're talking about blacks as a distinct group is no different than talking about you young teenagers as a distinct group, you know? Some people, I don't like this one because he has long hair or he wears an earring in his ear. That's nonsense, and we shouldn't let those kind of personal biases enter into our professional dealings.
Well, how long have you been in Danbury now? How long
approximately 12 years.
12 years. And did, I missed the first part, the youngsters asked you about where you came from originally? Yeah.
I'm originally from Stamford, Connecticut. I was born and raised in Stamford, Connecticut.
Okay, so coming from relatively big city life in Stamford, Connecticut to Danbury, what changes have you seen in this community over the years? It's been 12 years now. Is it getting better, worse? Are there good things happening that, you know, you're happy about?
I think basically it depends on your own personal frame of reference. I see Danbury growing and changing, and with change comes some positive things, and just like everything else, there's plus and minuses. And with change comes some negative things. We can sit back and talk about the good old days, but when we really examine them, the good old days weren't so good. Of course, when you get growth and change, it's not the same old thing that you're accustomed to. It's not the same neighborhood. It's not the same people. We have to accept growth and change, I think, because it's something that's come, and if we don't prepare for it and accept it, it will push its way in anyway. I mean, we're like, if we're against certain type of housing, well, people with money that want to develop these lands, they're going to push it through anyway. They have the organization, they have the political backing, it's going to be done. So the only thing I can say is kind of get together and do something on a constructive measure so it'll be done properly, so we won't lose all of it. I think growth is wonderful. Growth creates jobs. It stimulates the economy. I mean, without that, we become stagnant. People forget that. Of course, we lose some of that. We lose our grass, our trees. We lose all the natural things that we're accustomed to, and we replace them with asphalt. To me, that's a very painful thing. I mean, I like to wake up in the morning and look out in the woods sometimes and see wild animals and listen to the birds, see the squirrels run through my backyard, and to worry about the rabbits eating my lettuce in the garden. But if we're not careful, we won't have any gardens because it'll be covered with parking lots.
So there's a price to pay for progress?
There is a price to pay, but progress don't have to be a negative thing.
I think before we close it up, I know you've done some work with community groups and volunteer work in the community. Would you share a little bit of that with the students, the things you've done?
I worked in some various community groups since being active in the Danbury area. One of the groups I've worked with was the Community Action Agency of Danbury, and they're basically an anti-poverty agent, and they attempt to deal with some of the ills of society, some of the very same ills that caused us to be, as police officers, to get involved with society. And basically, they had the basic same goals as the police department. That is the elimination of the types of conditions that create pain for people, and we try and make life a little better. They have various specified groups or agencies that deal with specific areas of problems. But I see it basically as community agencies and the police department and other organizations working together to bring about the kind of change that's necessary for everybody to have an area of growth. One of the other groups that I've worked with is the Women's Center in Danbury. And they also have different programs in specialized areas. And one of their specific areas is rape crisis. They deal with people who have been sexually assaulted, male or females, and young or old. And they have specific programs set up to try and help people who suffer the pains of sexual assault.
I think it's pretty neat. I don't know if they were aware of it, but it's the first year we've had a men's group at the Women's Center, and you were one of the first people to get involved in it and helped out. And I think that's a neat thing to know, that people, that you are there.
Yeah, well, that's important. Most of the time when we talk in terms of sexual assault, we have so many fallacies connected to it. And people seem to think that it's something that a woman or a female would bring about on themselves. And they think of it in terms as a sexual thing. In reality, sexual assault is not, it has nothing to do with sex. It has a lot to do with violence, has a lot to do with pain, and it has a lot to do with punishing people, not with sex at all. Absolutely. And a lot of times it has to do with what happened to us as young people that we never dealt with or we never shared with anyone, or it has to do with how we related to people growing up and what we felt that we never worked out. And we tend to take it out on other people in our lives.
Did you ever have to deal with someone that's been sexually...
Yes. Quite frequently I dealt with sexually abused people, male and females. And to me, it's a very painful process, because I tend, and as professionals we're not supposed to do this, I tend to identify with the victim and kind of feel that pain that they're going through. And it has like a double edge for me, because the majority of sexual assaults are females that are reported, that we deal with. And then it's very difficult because it's a male that's created or did this horrible thing, and then I, as a police officer, coming to interview the person, what she sees is another male. And without the proper conditioning and training, you won't be sensitized enough to be able to relate and to understand the pains of that person and to get them to talk with you.
There seems to be a greater sensitivity on the part of the police today than there used to be in relation to victims. At one time, if a person was a victim of assault, they were pretty harshly handled. You obviously show a great deal of sensitivity. Is this you personally, or is this police training, or a combination of the two?
Well, the police world, just like the rest of the world, it has to grow and progress. And we're greatly removed from that old idea of the neighborhood cop that came along. We try and retain some of the good ideas, but on the other hand, we try and learn and understand people. And most modern day police officers, they go to school, they learn how to treat and deal with different people. In addition, we have seminars and special training on how to deal with sexual assault victims, child abuse, and many other areas. So what you see here is a composite of that. My history, my background, my police training, and my concern.
Dave, do you have a question?
I'm not just going to ask.
It's okay. It doesn't matter. We have anybody in the crew want to ask something before we close it up?
What would you recommend for a young person wanting to become a police officer?
Any young person wanting to be a police officer, I would recommend strongly that they not be so concerned with use of power, because we have a lot of power, but that they should generally be in tune with being concerned about people and wanting to help people, because basically that's what our job consists of. You asked me a little earlier about some of the disadvantages, some of the things that we run into in this job. A couple of other areas of disadvantage or stress for us is having to deal with specified ethnic groups, like the Hispanic community. In Danbury, we don't have any Hispanic police officers, and quite frequently we have to go into the community, and every ethnic group is different. They all bring a different set of values along with their tradition and custom. And if you can't understand those and relate to them, then you're going to have a hard time dealing and understanding those people. And that in itself is a negative, because it's a general accepted rule that anything you don't know or don't understand, you don't like. So if someone is a little different from you and they have a different set of values, if you're not open and you have the understanding, you tend to say they have no values or their values are low and they're just causing problems. And we have in Danbury, as part of our pains of growth, we have a large Hispanic community, we have a large black community, we have a large Asiatic community. When I say Asiatic, I'm talking about the Chinese, the Japanese, I'm talking about all the Vietnamese, the Cambodians, the Laotians, the Laotians. All these people have different goals and different backgrounds. And if you can't understand them, you can't help them. Even when you try and help them, you may be doing something to them that insults their integrity without you even knowing it. So our job becomes even more difficult because, as along with applying the rules and applying force and helping people, we have to learn about all different types of people, be able to communicate with them. And I can't speak a word of any Asiatic language. I know a few words in Spanish. I have a lot of friends in the Spanish community to help me out. But I would love to see more black police officers, more Hispanic police officers, and some Asiatic police officers on our force here in town. We need it, because some people have said the Asiatics are the new niggers in town. The Asiatics are the new niggers in town. They get treated the same way that black people were treated the last 15, 20 years. It's just an economic thing. As we move up the ladder, somebody takes their place.
How do people get, sometimes a community says it wants people to join, and yet when the time comes, there seems to be a lot of obstacles. How do young Hispanics, Asiatics, blacks, how do they go about preparing themselves and getting into these jobs, which are very important jobs in their community?
I think basically they want to go to school, they have to get their high school diploma, they want to go to college, they want to take up some courses. And college is not difficult, college is fun and it's really great. I mean, once upon a time we had that concept, college was for a certain type of person, or a certain class of person, but that's not true. That's not true anymore. College is for anyone who wants to go to school and study and learn. That's who it's for. You want to go up, you want to go to school, you want to take some police science, you want to take some political science, you want some sociology, you want some psychology, you want some English, you want some math. Those are the kind of things. And if you don't graduate from college, you want to get at least 2 years, you want to get your feet wet. There's still communities who accept police officers without the college background. But that's becoming a thing of the past. It's still possible in Danbury to become a police officer without attending college. But the step towards is moving that way. And 5 years from now, I dare say, somebody might say you have to have a BS to become a police officer. I think the only reason why they're reluctant to do that now is you have to pay more money. You're talking about a different caliber of person. But that's the general step in any field. So whether you think about becoming police officers or not, I say go to school and learn. And do it for yourself. If you don't care about anything else, do it for yourself. But anyway, any black person, any minority wanting to become a police officer in this town, they apply to the Civil Service Commissioner. The Civil Service Commissioner will tell them the approximate test dates. And before that, I suggest that they practice up on their reading and their writing, their basic math abilities. Okay, get into study groups and start going over these things. Contact someone from the police department. Any minorities wanting to join on the force, they can contact some of the minorities on the Danbury Police Department and ask them specifically what they can do and what kind of help they could do. If you don't go to college, you can always go to the library and read books on police science, on police patrol. There's ways of doing things if you want to do it. But you have to have that determination, because just like any other place, we're growing and changing, and there's people in the community who want you. There's people on the police force who want you on the police force. But there's also that other side of the picture. There's people who still think we'd be okay if we could just go back to how we used to be, which can never be. And they don't want you, and they can make life miserable for you. And you have to be prepared to step over all that to make your progress.
It's a little tougher in some respects.
Oh, it will be. It will be. I mean, you have to pass your test, and you have to lead an exemplary life on and off duty. Because technically you're on duty 24 hours a day, and any type of violation can be grounds for dismissal.
I was gonna ask you, what do you think of our juvenile justice system?
The juvenile justice system is comparable to our entire criminal justice system. I think it's time for a serious revamping. I think it's time for a serious message of change. Our system is archaic, and it's very slow. And people complain about justice and how people fall through. And if you have a lot of money, you can avoid justice at all. You make your justice. We need a new system. We need a new method of dealing with the people.
Do you think it's like, do you think just, like, do
Talk
you think
about
it's
it.
fair? Do you think it's, like, the people who work with juveniles, do you think they look at certain minorities, there's certain people that look at minorities and treat them differently than they would, say, a rich kid from, like, say the mayor's son had gotten into trouble and you got a black juvenile from Springfield. Do you think they're treated differently?
Technically, under the eyes of the law, all people should be treated the same. But let us face reality. We're talking about Danbury, a town that has been growing and changing for the past 20 years. You have a lot of people here who still don't understand and appreciate black people, Hispanic people, Asiatic people. And they're not used to them. They didn't grow up with them. They didn't learn about them in school. What they learned was the negative things they used to say about us as minorities. And although they try and they say, I'm not going to do that. See, this is a part of your whole psychological makeup, and you do this unintentionally. You carry your prejudice and you project it. And how you talk to a person, how you treat them, it all comes out. You know when someone don't like you or don't like dealing with you. And if you look at them, you can observe it. It can come out. It takes time, patience, and training and willingness to kind of eliminate it out of your life. And I sit here as a black man, and I don't dare sit here and say that I am a man without prejudice. It took me a long time to understand and accept the fact that I have prejudices just like everyone else. And it's not an easy thing to eradicate, but it's something that we must consciously be aware of and try and eliminate from our lives. Your court system, you might get some difference in treatment from the various peoples attached to the court system, the people who are supposed to help you. Some people have a concept. Those people, they won't amount to anything anyway. Why waste time helping them? Let's help somebody we can help. And with that, that's a defeatist attitude. These people suffering burnt out. They really should retire from their job because you're just holding up, destroying the system. On the other hand, without the proper intervention, what they say is true, but this don't apply to black people or Hispanic people or Asiatic. This applies to all people. If you're in a bad situation and no one's going to intervene, then there won't be any change. And you can't change something by saying, you must not do this, you must change. You have to change that environment. Because you can take that person out of that environment, change them, put them back in the environment, and they will go back to the way they were.
I think that fits in with your next question, Judy. Want to read that last question?
I think that about answers it. That would really,
Do you think it's right?
Yeah, just read it out.
Do you think it's right to say that black people or even Puerto Ricans start at an early crime at an earlier age than white people?
No, that's the from my personal experience and from statistics, it can be proven that percentage-wise or even number-wise, black people commit no more crime than white people or Chinese people or any other people. What happens is that you have a system that favors one group over another. You see it all the time. You pick up juveniles for stealing a candy bar in a store. Well, gee, that's Joey Jones' cousin. He's my distant fifth cousin. You know, I'll call up his mother and send him on home. And that's the end of the case. And when they pick up this black kid, I don't know him, he's going to be a little hoodlum anyway, let's lock him up. Take him down and process him. So the numbers are changed. The fact is not changed, but the numbers change. So when you come in and review the numbers are out of whack. And this happens throughout life.
Can that be fixed? Can that, what would you, this might be a good way to kind of sum it up. What could you suggest, or what do you think could be done to make the system fairer so that all people really are treated as a matter of training or, you know?
It has to be training. It has to be a lot of conscious training and sensitizing periods where people learn to relate to people as human beings, as brothers, and not as different ethnic groups or relatives or something like that, but deal with people to people. We have to learn to do that, and that's hard. That's even harder in the type of system. Not only we're in a paramilitary organization and we're taught to follow orders and to do things, and it's kind of hard to even accept that concept from older people in the system. They don't believe in it. I think it's easier to start with young people and just work up, and over a period of time hope to eliminate that type of thinking, even though I know rationally that you'll never eliminate that type of thinking totally, but you can get the majority of people to stand up for the good, and that will kind of lessen the effects of the minority of people who does the bad things.
You know, I wonder, my father goes to prisons a lot, you know, in Puerto Rico, and he's been in the courts a lot, and I've been in court a couple of times. It seems like I see a lot more blacks and Hispanics and Asiatics in the courts and the prisons than anything else.
Well, again, you see, it's a culmination of the ills of society. Racism is a hideous monster. It permeates our entire structure. We no longer in the North has racism to deal with, per se, by people being prejudiced. I mean, we still have the Klan trying to march and whatnot, visible signs of it. We have taken racism and institutionalized it. We have made it part of our culture. So an individual don't have to own it. See, the system owns it, you know, where you can live in a certain area, you can work in a certain area. Well, no one person controls that anymore. So it's kind of hard to attack unless you attack that on an organized basis. That's where the majority of our people end up, is in prisons. It's because they get put outside the system. They go to school. Let me tell you a personal experience I had. In my life. This was as far, I can remember racism. I didn't understand it then, but I could understand it now looking back on it. It's in the 6th grade. I was in the 6th grade, and this is when we had tracking system, first highest, second highest, third highest. I was, of course, in the first highest group, and I had a 6th grade teacher and in my elementary school, and she couldn't understand the world. For why is Wilbur in this group? He should be in the other group with the rest of those people, not in this first highest group. And like the second day in class, she took my desk, placed it into the corner, put my chair on the other side of it so I would face the corner. And I spent half of that year in that position till one day the principal came up in the room and said, "Why is he there? I've been in here before and I've seen him sitting there. Why is he there?" And the next day I was out back into the class. You know, what I'm simply trying to point out is that minorities get put outside of the system early, and by the time you're 14, 15, 16, you're not relating to this system. You're not learning about what you should be. And people have these concepts where you can't learn, there's something wrong with you, they don't teach you much. You start fooling around, and if you can just stay there till you're 16 without getting in trouble and then quit school, it's okay. Well, we've moved from that. But we still have this institutionalized racism that affects the kids. When you go to school, in elementary school, they teach little kids such things as, in the old days, people were slaves, and they were happy to be slaves. They were happy slaves, and they used to dance on Friday and Saturday night at parties. You know, and they enjoyed it, and they didn't want their freedom. And black kids don't want to study this because it makes them feel bad. And they fool around, they do other things because they don't know how to respond to this. They haven't learned. See, you grow up in this culture and you become a part of it, and you start internalizing it and hating yourself as an individual, which becomes very destructive. And so until we can learn to foster our culture and to believe in ourselves as a people, this goes for any minority that comes here. You're going to see this with the Asiatics. They're going to start suffering culture shock because everything that they learn, everything that they know, all of a sudden has no value. You know, they can change their culture, they can incorporate, they can change, but you cannot deny who you are and what you are. You cannot reject that, because in doing so, you reject yourself. I can stand in the mirror, I can use Brill cream all day. I will not look like Superman, even if I learn to fly. You know, it's a fallacy. I am who I am, and I have to be proud of that. And all the other little black people have to be proud of who they are. You can't sit there and say, I'm going to be 10 and look like, what's her name? When those are our braids that she took. You know, now I see papers saying that they came out with her, that she invented it. This is ridiculous. That's part of our culture that you're taking away from us.
Yeah. You're being a police officer. It must be hard for you because, I mean, you must get a lot of comments, and it must take a lot out of you not to do something about it.
Well,
when you do get comments, isn't it?
You get comments, and
because I know I get.
You ask
stuff
people
all the time.
to adjust those comments. Because at least in this predicament, as a police officer, I can bring about some of that change immediately. Because I can ask them to adjust their behavior, or I will adjust it for them by putting handcuffs on them and taking them to jail. So then they have to mumble it under their breath so I can't hear it. But at least up front, they have to treat me correctly and anybody else around them correctly. See, that's the good part of this job. The bad part of this job is when you have to go into the black community and somebody's been there before and they've been not properly treated, and they have this idea, here comes another one of those pigs, look at that, he's turning on his own people. Well, you don't always have time to talk to them or explain to them, you have a function to perform. And it's painful like that, but it's part of progress. We go as we go along. That's why I'm active in the community, to get people to know, get people to understand that the police department is there to serve all the people. We will help you, whether you're poor or rich, black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, or anyone. We are there to help you, and we will help.
Dave, want to close the session?
That wraps it up.
Okay.